Okay, picture this. You're on a breathtaking beach in Thailand. The sun's out, the water is that perfect shade of blue, the food is just incredible. It's the kind of trip we all daydream about, right? A perfect getaway. And it turns out millions and millions of people are having that exact same thought. So get this. In 2019 alone, right before the world turned upside down, Thailand had an incredible 39 million international visitors. To put that into perspective, that's more than half the entire population of the UK, all visiting one country in just 1 year. It's a massive, multi-trillion-dollar industry, globally. But while we're all busy soaking up the sun and getting that perfect Instagram shot, there's a whole other story playing out behind the scenes, one that, doesn't really make it into the glossy travel brochures. So what is the real price of paradise? Well, it turns out the industry we love so much has a pretty serious hidden price tag. And for a lot of these beautiful destinations, that bill is starting to come due. Some researchers have described mass tourism as a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that's such a perfect way to put it. It sells itself as this green, beautiful, idyllic experience, but hiding underneath all that, it can be incredibly destructive. So let's start with the most obvious damage, the environment. We're talking about coral reefs that used to be bursting with life, now just damaged from overuse. Oceans and rivers are getting so polluted with trash that local waste systems just can't keep up. And here's the really ironic part. Those giant resorts built for our comfort, they often cause severe water shortages for the very communities who are hosting us. But the damage isn't just environmental. It goes deeper. It's cultural. See, when a flood of tourists comes into a place demanding an authentic experience, a really strange thing starts to happen. Local culture can become kind of standardized, almost like a theme park version of what it once was. Ancient rituals, things that were once sacred, are sometimes put on like a show for an audience. It turns genuine tradition into a performance. And what about all the money? You would think all those tourist dollars would be a huge boost for local economies, right? Well, a lot of the time, the profits just flow right out of the community and into the pockets of large, foreign-owned corporations. This can create massive inequality. You get this stark divide between the fancy luxury resorts and the poor living conditions of the local residents, sometimes just right outside the walls. For years, the answer to all this was supposed to be sustainable tourism. I mean, it sounds great, doesn't it? But as we're all starting to figure out, it might just be a trap. So the classic definition of sustainable tourism is all about meeting our needs today without messing things up for future generations. What that really means is the goal is to maintain the status quo. It's basically damage control. Yeah, think about what that actually means. Sustainability isn't really about making things better. It's about being less bad. It's about trying to minimize our negative impact, not create a positive one. And a lot of people are now arguing that with all the damage that's already been done, just being less bad, well, it's not nearly good enough anymore. And this is where it all clicks. Sustainable tourism aims to reduce harm. But this new idea, regenerative tourism, asks a completely different and way more powerful question. What if we could actively do good? What if our travels could leave a place even better than we found it? And this brings us to what is really a revolutionary new way of thinking. It's a complete paradigm shift, moving away from just sustaining a place to actively regenerating it. Regenerative tourism isn't just about reducing your carbon footprint or, reusing your hotel towel. It's a much bigger, more holistic approach that's designed to actively heal and improve the entire ecosystem of a destination. We're talking its environment, its culture, and its community. This whole approach is built on a few really powerful ideas. It's about actively restoring nature and culture, not just trying to preserve them. It uses something called systems thinking to understand how everything is connected. And most importantly, it puts nature and the local community at the very heart of every single decision. So let's just ask that question one more time, because it really changes everything. What if your vacation wasn't just a drain on local resources, but it was actually a force for healing? What if your trip could help restore a forest or revive a cultural tradition? Now, I know this might sound a little idealistic, maybe a little pie in the sky, but it's already happening. Let's take a look at a real-world example of how this philosophy is actually working in practice. So in a rural part of Malaysia, a community came up with this program called the Kilu Farmstay. Instead of letting big hotels come in, they invited travelers to stay with local families and actually take part in their daily lives. And the results? They're just incredible. The actions were pretty simple. Tourists would help with farm work, learn local crafts, and get tours from community members. The outcomes were amazing. Higher income for local families, for sure, but also a complete stop to deforestation because the community's livelihood didn't depend on it anymore. They even started a community-led effort to clean up trash that was already there. But maybe the most powerful result of all was the change in mindset. As one report put it, the community started to see themselves not as just service providers for tourists, but as protectors of their land. They started making plans to pass on this revitalized home to their own kids. I mean, that is regeneration in action. So, what does all of this mean for us, for all of us? It means we have this amazing opportunity to completely reimagine what it even means to travel. And look, the stakes are really high. Right now, tourism is responsible for up to 8% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. Just continuing with business as usual, well, it's just not an option. The path forward here is really a team effort. It's going to require us, as travelers, to seek out and choose these kinds of restorative experiences. It's going to require businesses to invest in models that actually benefit the community, not just take from it. And it's going to require governments to create policies that support and incentivize regeneration over mass exploitation. So this all really comes down to one final question. The next time you pack your bags, I want you to think about your impact. Are you going to be a passive consumer in this giant mass tourism machine? Or are you going to choose to be an active participant in healing the planet one trip at a time? Will you be a tourist or will you be a regenerator?